could probably guess from the title that I just watched a crazy anime. Now, I know that technically some could say that I am pretty late to the party, but then again, it's always best to be late than never. And when it comes to Kill la Kill, I will say that even though I haven't watched it in the past and that I only just recently saw it, I was always aware of its existence. In fact, I do recall that Kill la Kill was one of the most popular animes back in the 2010 decade. I wouldn't say it was the most popular, but I could definitely say that with the amount of fanfare that it had, especially back during its prime, I would say that it almost reached the levels of animes like Attack on Titan, One Punch Man, or My Hero Academia, where like it did get some popularity at the very least, and even to this day, there is still a significant cult following when it comes to Kill la Kill. So definitely just from browsing on social media or just being on the internet for a while, I do recall when people were really talking about it, when it was one of the hottest animes at the time. You could interpret that however you would want. And also I do remember seeing that it is the kind that would go and have a lot of fan art based on the series. Now, you can go and interpret that however you want. But for real, though, it is actually very interesting to go and discuss about Kill la Kill, especially when looking back at its history, because this was actually the show that really started the popularity of Studio Trigger, where when I was doing some research for the show, I was actually pretty surprised to find that considering the popularity of Studio Trigger right now, this was actually one of their first animated projects that they have created, or at the very least, this was their first original animated series that they went out and produced. It was one of the first things that they went and put out. It got a lot of popularity, and from there, their recognition got significantly boosted to the point where nowadays, like I said before, it's one of the most acclaimed Japanese animated studios out there, where you've probably have heard about many of their other projects that they would do after Kill la Kill. Like they would go on to go and create Little Witch Academia, they would do the movie Promare, they would do Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and they have actually produced not one, but 2 animated shorts for the anthology series Star Wars Visions. Specifically, they have produced the episodes Twins and The Elder. And I just gotta say that now that I have actually seen Kill la Kill, I finally do understand what people were talking about when they were all making comparisons with Twins and Kill la Kill, because Twins is pretty much the Star Wars version of Kill la Kill. And I mean, I feel like the two of them actually do combine pretty well together. I wouldn't necessarily say that Twins is my favorite Star Wars Vision episode, but then again, I do see how the Kill la Kill approach can work out with Star Wars, considering that both Kill la Kill and Star Wars are anti-fascist properties.
Save me? You can't even save yourself!
Actually, before we jump into this anime, I just want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Atlas VPN. I'll just say this right now, they got a very special offer in which you can actually buy their service for just $183 a month, plus you can get 3 months for free. All you have to do is just go into the link in the description in order to go and take advantage of this offer. Now, we all know that at this point, VPNs have become more and more essential in order to go and protect your devices. And that's why Atlas VPN is here to have you covered on that. They will make sure that all your computers, all your phones, all your tablets, just all your devices in general, that they will be secure. Their VPN will protect you from all forms of malware. It will keep all of your Google searches a secret, so don't worry, whatever crazy thing you're looking for, no one will ever know. And of course, you could disguise yourself as if you're from a completely different country so that when you go into whatever streaming platform you want to go and check out, you can actually check the content from that region that you're disguising in. So if you want to take advantage of that opportunity, then all you have to do is go into the link in the description. And then from there, you'll be able to get Atlas VPN for only $183 per month plus 3 months for free. And just a heads up, if you're not fully happy with Atlas VPN, then don't worry, they actually do have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you really do have nothing to lose. So once again, I just want to say special thanks to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this review, and with all that said and done, let's finally get into Kill la Kill. So to the best of my ability, the quickest way to summarize Kill la Kill is that it's about this girl named Ryuko Matoi who moved into this school called Honnoji Academy. But Honnoji Academy ain't just your regular high school that you would find in Japan. It's actually this entire island that is this massive hierarchy in which it really separates the poor from the rich, and it's entirely dominated by the student council, and it's entirely run by this tyrannical student council president named Lady Satsuki. And like I said, they got this major hierarchy system where they really do separate the rich from the poor. It really is like this authoritarian paradise.
The top-tier students live in the ritzy area. Lower-tier students like us get the slums.
Your status at school determines where you live?
Pretty straightforward, isn't it?
However, Ryuko is on a massive mission. She's not just there to go into a new school. She has to go and figure out who killed her father. And she is actually joined by this talking piece of clothing that she would wear, in which would allow her to go and transform and actually gain these super abilities. And that's one of the prominent themes of Kill la Kill, is that they would go and actually wear these suits in which it would go and grant them these major powers. And from there, Ryuko would have to go and face against many of the student council club members, in which they would have their own prominent themes. And she would have to go and fight her way in order to go and confront Lady Satsuki and try to answer a whole bunch of questions like who killed her father, what the fridge is that piece of clothing that she is wearing, and why is it so skimpy, and why does it come to life, and where would these clothing would go and get their powers. So this isn't like some slice of school life anime. This is actually something that's a lot more action-packed. And the first thing that I want to go and point out is actually regarding the tone, because this is one of those animes that really goes all out. Like, even right from the start, it actually begins with like a massive action-packed scene, and they really go extravagant with the action, and it's continuously like that all out. This is the kind of show where it really is go big or go home. Like, really go big with the action, really go big with the comedy, really go big with the animation. And from there, it is a massive gamble when a piece of content would really go extravagant, especially in the levels of what Kill la Kill would try to do, because it's either you would go win big or it could really turn off some viewers. And I'll just go and say right now that for the most part, it actually manages to capture that tone extremely well. Like, whenever there is some action, it does everything it can in order to be highly exhilarating, to be completely action-packed, to really go all out with all of its concepts. Like, they have like one idea, and then they would find all the different possibilities of how they could go and execute it. And they try to do the best to their ability to jam-pack that into each and every episode in order to really make it extremely engaging. Like, to really get into the action, to really get into the characters, to really get into what's going on, they really go all out with it, and I will say it does work. I will talk about some of these later, but one of the things that it does extremely well is actually in regards to the action. Like, no matter what, I think that's the one that manages to be the most successful and be continuously successful, because every time there's like a moment of action when Ryuko would have to face an enemy or something like that, they always do their best to like put the energy to the max and to make it as exhilarating as possible, to get you into this wild roller coaster. Even like the camera would keep like swerving around, almost like you're in the middle of the action. Like you have like front row seats to see like the big battle of Ryuko versus whoever she's gonna go and fight.
Musical barrage!
But keep in mind that I did say, for the most part, I would lie if I said that the tone continuously works throughout the entire anime. Because when you would have like this amount of high energy and high amount of intensity throughout the entire thing, then you would run at the risk where it would be a little bit too much, where sometimes the ideas or some of the execution can get a little bit too carried away and it would feel a bit much. It would feel like it would go and put off the viewer to the point where they feel like they just have to stop so that they can go and have a breather. And to be honest, there have been some moments where I did feel that, actually. Like, there are some times where the comedy can get a little too over the top. There are times when the action can get a little bit too extreme at times. Or there are some ideas that they can go completely ludicrous with it, where I just need to have a moment to like just stop right there and let me have a bit of time to go and let me process what I've just witnessed, because sometimes it can be a bit too much all at once. And I'm just gonna say, maybe this is gonna be a little bit of a hot take, especially coming from me, and this might sound like a weird comparison, but Kill la Kill and its tone reminds me a bit of the Paul Ruddish Mickey Mouse cartoons. Now, I know it sounds absolutely bizarre to go and make that kind of comparison, but the Paul Ruddish Mickey Mouse cartoons feel similar in the way that it has that kind of tone. It has that kind of like throwing in all its energy compact into like the episodes that it would distribute and just go completely crazy with its wackiness. And it's the kind of show where when it works, it really does work, and they would go and put out some of the best Mickey Mouse cartoons in a long time. But it also does happen when it gets a little bit too carried away with its craziness to the point where it can feel a bit too much at times, where they went a little too far with its tone and it doesn't become as enjoyable anymore. It just becomes a bit much. And that feeling that I had in some of those Mickey Mouse cartoons, I would have the same thing with Kill la Kill, where sometimes like it would just throw me off with the amount of energy or like with the amount of crazy ideas that it would have, to the point where like it did take me away from the show a little bit. So that's one thing I just want to say right off the bat, where, yeah, for the most part, the tone really does work, and it knows at times, and it knows how to use that high amount of energy in order to really make the show engaging and to make it a lot of fun to watch. But I will admit that sometimes it can feel a little bit too much, and there are times when it can go a little bit too far with the amount of energy that it would have.
You filthy animal! Don't climb on me! Stop sticking your claws into me! Stop drooling on me and do not break wind on me! Ryuko, please, do something!
But I will say, with that high amount of energy, there are some elements that do help it out in order to make it work. And there are some elements in the show that actually really do benefit from that high amount of energy. Like, number one, that animation is absolutely gorgeous. I think the team at Studio Trigger did a wonderful job to go and really keep up with the high amount of intensity and the high amount of action, the craziness, and all that kind of stuff. Like, they did great to go and really keep it up. It manages to execute it all well in a manner that actually feels smooth and that it actually feels pretty engaging and very nice to look at as well. And the two things I would say that the animation actually did nail absolutely beautifully is in regards to the action, where it's really thanks to the animators that in which the action really does work in a way that actually feels engaging, that the motions are very fast paced and in a way that's actually pretty easy to follow, and that you see everything that is going on and that you do feel like you are part of the action. And like I stated before, like they really did play a part in like just taking the camera and making you feel like you're just going on a roller coaster as you see Ryuko just battling against whichever opponent that she would be faced, and that you're just going around the madness that would normally happen in Honoji Academy. So already the animation really nails on the action, while at the same time can also be pretty colorful, or it does have a very clever use of colors. Know when to go and integrate some bright colors, or when to go and be very subdued with its colors. Like when you go into the no star rank and you see like the slums of Honoji Academy, or like you would go and see like very rich colors, especially when associating with Lady Satsuki, or to really make characters pop out like Senketsu and Ryuko. So there really is a good use of color throughout the anime that really is nice. And also, one thing that I very much admire from the show is actually in regards to its creativity, where they would go and take this concept of like turning a school into this crazy action-packed universe featuring a bunch of these like magical costumes really do work out well. Like that's one thing that left a great first impression on me when watching this anime, is to see all the different like club presidents and see all the different student council members and how they would go and have each of their prominent themes. Like you would go and have like a tennis club president, you would have a boxing president, you would have a gardening president. And it does like run your imagination to know like what would be the next president that you would see come face to face with Ryuko. Now, I will say though that not every different type of class you can imagine would be prominent in there. Like, yeah, they have like a massive variety, whether it be disciplinary, or you would have like a marching band themed, or like some of the ones I've already mentioned, like sports. But what I will say I was a little bit disappointed is that one that I really would like to see is if they would have like a drama class president. That would have been pretty cool to check out, but sadly, no. They wouldn't have any. Like, worst case scenario, if I really want to go and see that, I would probably have to make my own Kill la Kill OC. I don't know. But this is pretty much to say that one of the best things about Kill la Kill is the creativity. And when it has an idea, it really does take advantage of that. And because of that high energy tone, it does everything in its power to go and like really figure out all the possibilities of what they can do with that theme, what they can do to really play around with it, and how they can go and integrate it into this action-packed anime. So that's another thing that I do have to give credit, especially when it comes to the animation, to go and execute that in such an intense and memorable way. Also, on a side note, I want to go and give credit to the voice acting as well, because that's another component that actually does complement to the high energy of the series. Now, I know that technically some would go and say that by regular standards, this would be the kind of voice acting that feels a little bit too hammy. Like, the performances that the actors would go and give out is a bit over the top. But for me, I feel like I would go and give it a pass because, while technically yes, it is pretty over the top and a lot of it doesn't necessarily feel natural, especially when some of the dialogue can explain a little bit too much regarding like the characters themselves or the situation that they would be in. Like, there is like an abnormal amount of exposition that they would go and do, like to literally go and clarify everything to the viewer.
I am the disciplinary committee. I lead by example. That's why I bind and whip myself so mercilessly.
The care of this manor has been entrusted to me, Takiji Kuroido, steward to the Kiryuin family. Even if you are the lady of the house, I cannot allow such willful behavior.
I lost because I relied too much on my eyes. I won't be able to beat Matoy unless you take away my sight!
But then again, I would not necessarily blame the voice actors for that. That's more the localization and that is more the writing, and that would be another subject altogether. But the thing with the voice actors, yeah, even though a lot of it is pretty over the top, they're just doing their job. That's how I feel, because this is a show that is over the top. And in order to go and channel that tone, the actors also would have to go and be over the top. They just have to go and keep up with the show's pace. And like the animation, I feel like the actors actually did a pretty good job of what they're supposed to do. Again, maybe not the best example of voice acting in an anime, but considering what they're supposed to do for this anime in particular, they managed to do what they have to do. And like the job that they were assigned, I think it's one that they could say that it's a mission accomplished. But then you have another factor that is actually very well known about this anime. One that I feel like some people are actually pretty divided when it comes to this aspect, or at least it is divided among those who have yet to actually see Kill la Kill, and that is in regards to the fan service. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this is one of those animes that offer a lot of fan service. Like the kind where you actually do see a lot of skin, you actually do see a lot of curves, and even like when the main characters are battle ready, like even they would go and show off an abnormal amount of skin. And that's often one of the biggest questions that people would go and ask. Why are the characters dressed like that? Or especially when it comes to Ryuko, why is it when she would have to go and battle that she would almost bear it all? That the only things that are not covered or almost not covered is actually from like the top of her chest all the way down to like her legs. So that's one thing that a lot of people have been asking. But one thing that I could say for sure is that now that I have seen it, I can actually say that there is a legitimate reason, and believe it or not, it's not really because that the animators are horny. Now, I would lie if I said that the show never got horny whatsoever. Like, it's almost self-aware of what it's actually doing, and there have been a lot of questionable shots where you actually do focus a lot on certain areas of some of the characters, rather it be Ryuko or Satsuki, or even some moments where like they would show a lot of curves or they would show a lot of skin to some of the characters. And I'll even say, by the way, that it's not just the girls that would go and bear it all or bear almost all. There is a bit of guy eye candy as well, especially when it comes to that teacher who is secretly working with Ryuko in order to go and take down Satsuki's system, in which you always see the guy like continuously stripping, and not to mention that like his nipples would glow purple for some reason. And that's one thing that does bother me about this anime, is that they never explain why the fridge does his nipples would continuously glow. Like, he doesn't have any powers whatsoever. This dude just loves stripping down to wearing nothing, and that for some reason he has like these prominent glowing nipples. I'll say now that the anime answers a lot of questions, but why the dude has purple glowing nipples, that I don't know. But yeah, even though that there can be some moments that can be pretty pervy, and that the fan service is, yes, meant for fan service, it actually does have a justifiable explanation that is a part of the story, and that it is a part of the world building. Because on top of the subtle anti-fascism message that it would have, and with the prominent school theming in there, there's also this major theming when it comes to clothing. And that they would also go and focus on the bond between Ryuko and the clothing that comes to life that she would wear, Senketsu. And from there, they would actually go and explain a lot regarding why the outfits are made that way, why we do see characters often bearing it all. Why is it that we often see a lot of skin? Because they actually do go down into that component that actually does help out with the world building. It helps out with some of the character development and with some of their bond. And the more that you would watch these episodes, and don't worry, I will get more into this later, but the more that you will be engaged to know what the answers are going to be. And there are some that I can say are actually pretty logical, and that for this world, it actually does make sense. So honestly, that's one thing I do have to applaud. And this is something that's often pretty rare to go and find, but then again, maybe I'm wrong on that. It's the fact that with this anime in particular, while it does offer a lot of fan service, the reason why it's there is primarily for non-horny reasons. In fact, there's actually one thing that I do want to go and mention, because it's funny, when watching Kill la Kill, it actually reminds me a lot of an anime that I've watched not too long ago. It was called New Cutie Honey. It was this short-lived anime from the 1990s, and there are some components from that show that are strikingly similar to what we have seen with Kill la Kill. But just to go and quickly summarize my thoughts, I think it's safe to say that I actually much prefer Kill la Kill than with New Cutie Honey. And the reason for that is actually in large part because of how they would go and handle their fan service. Because you got on one side that actually does work, and you got another side that is actually much more distracting and actually takes off some points from that show. Because with New Cutie Honey, yeah, it has a lot of fan service, but I feel like for the kind of show that it is, it does often feel like it goes a little bit too far. Because this is a show in which they literally bear it all. Because unlike Kill la Kill, they would show a lot of naked girls, and they would also show their nipples. But the thing with New Cutie Honey is that there doesn't feel like a legitimate reason why there has to be so much fan service in the show, where it honestly just feels like it's a series where it just wants to be horny all the time, and it's always one step away from being a hentai. And it honestly leaves me a little bit confused, because it feels like it really wants to go into that extreme but doesn't want to go too far. That, and also, it doesn't have that strong of a connection to the story itself. It doesn't necessarily explain why, in a coherent or sensible way, why we need all that fan service outside of the horniness. Because with New Cutie Honey, the fan service, like, it's primarily there for the horniness. Whereas Kill la Kill, on the other hand, like I said before, yes, it does get horny, but it does so not necessarily because it's horny. It actually is self-aware about what it is doing. I won't say that it doesn't take itself seriously, but it is a show that's pretty tongue-in-cheek, where it's often self-aware of what it's trying to do. Like, it knows what its audience is thinking when they would go and do these kinds of scenes, and they make them aware that, yeah, like, it seems that way, but in truth, there is a little bit of a backstory, and not to mention that it is part of the big questions that people want answers to. They want to know why it's actually there, and it's part of why it makes it so engaging. Like, yeah, you see a lot of that fan service, but you want to know what is the non-horny reason as to why they would go and integrate it in there. So in a way, it makes the fan service part of the engagement to know why they would go and make such a weird move to present their anime in such a way. So honestly, when it comes to that fan service, yeah, like, you know, as a straight guy myself, it is enjoyable to see like these hot girls like almost naked and like they would go into action and stuff like that. But I also do appreciate that there is so much more into it, that it actually does build up to the story, to the characters, that it does actually play a significant role that isn't necessarily just there to go and make their viewers horny. So kudos to them on that. Oh, but speaking of the characters, that's another thing that I want to go and talk about, because it's interesting when it comes to them, since I would go and describe them as straightforward. I won't say that these characters are very complex, where there's so much about them and that you really dive deep into their history and stuff like that. But at the same time, I would not necessarily say that they are flat either. Like, the primary reason why these characters are there is to go and fulfill a specific role. Like, they got one primary job that they would go and do in the anime, and for the most part, that's what they would go and do. But at the same time, there is a little bit depth in them where they're not entirely one-dimensional. Like, with many of the primary characters, they would have a backstory of how they would go and be where they are today. Like, when it comes to Lady Satsuki's assistants, or as she would call them, the Elite Four, like, each of them would actually have their little backstory of how they actually met Lady Satsuki, on how they enrolled into Honnoji Academy, and how they ended up in the ranks of where they are right now. So there is a little bit of depth into them, but they're primarily there to go and serve the action, or they would serve a little bit to the plot. Like, really, it's mostly some of the main characters who would have the most depth, or that they would have the most complexities in them, where we would see a lot of layers, or at least some layers. I wouldn't necessarily say a whole lot of layers. Like, a good example is with Ryuko. With Ryuko, she is the hot-headed girl in which our story follows, and she is the person that, with the audience, she really wants to know the answers to so many things of what's going on with Honnoji Academy and with her backstory. Like, why is it that she has half of a giant pair of scissors? Why did her father pass away? And also, when it comes to Senketsu, why did he come to life? How did he come to life? And what is the energy that fuels not just Senketsu, but also all the other clothing that the people at Honnoji Academy would wear, and what is the life thread? Like, she goes around trying to figure out what are the answers to these questions, while at the same time being this hot-headed teenage girl where she would easily be agitated, she would always get angry, and that she would always lose her temper and always goes out to pick a fight with whoever stands in her way. And then you also have Lady Satsuki, which the quickest way that I could go and describe her is that she's pretty much, if you take Seto Kaiba from Yu-Gi-Oh! And you would just gender bend him. Like, she is basically Girl Kaiba, where Satsuki is this almighty and all-powerful person who rules all of Honoji Academy. And as I said before, she rules it like a fearless dictator, putting everyone in their place, making sure that her hierarchy system remains intact and that everybody is forced to follow the rules and that everybody fears her presence and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, she definitely plays a lot more of an antagonistic role. And what makes things interesting with the story is that Lady Satsuki actually knows one big question that Ryuko really wants to know, and it's who and why her father died. Like, who is it that killed her father, and what is even the reason for that in the first place? So that's part of the reason why you get engaged with the narrative and see Ryuko like go through person after person, where you see her be one step closer to Lady Satsuki and inevitably one step closer to the big questions that she would have. And there is also another character that I do want to mention, and that is Mako. Now, Mako is actually the comic relief, or I would say she is the main comic relief of the show, where she is actually the energetic best friend of Ryuko, where she is very bubbly, very extroverted, but she's always there no matter what to go and support Ryuko no matter what. Like, her selflessness actually makes her very headstrong, and I guess in a way with her comedic role along with her family as well, because when Ryuko does move to Honoji Academy, she also moves in with Mako and her family, and she would go and get to hang out with them. And with Mako, her role with the show is actually a pretty big part. That's why I actually do consider her a main character alongside Ryuko and Lady Satsuki. It's the fact that she would go and lighten things up whenever things would get a little too heavy or a little too intense with the action. And also, she would go and bring in the heart, where she would go and highlight the meaning of friendship, and that she would provide something that Ryuko never really had in her life, and that is a friend. That is having someone to care about, having support from someone. And I'm gonna be very honest with you all. There's just one thing that I honestly did not expect when watching this anime. I honestly like Mako, and I mean like. Now, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the straight guy brain in me just thinking about that subject, especially when you see semi-naked women going around in like crazy action and stuff like that, and you would see like the curvaceous bods of Lady Satsuki and Ryuko. But when it comes to Mako, I feel like she really does stand out because she does have one thing that Ryuko and Lady Satsuki, or pretty much all the other girls, do not have, and that is a personality. I mean, with Mako, she already has like a pretty hot bod, just like the other girls in the show, and I would arguably say that she is also the bustiest. But with Mako, she also has this very sweet and very bubbly personality, and it's just the way that she is so energetic and so positive, and that she pretty much devotes her life to supporting the people that she does care about. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that would be simping for Ryuko or for Lady Satsuki, but honestly, for me, I gotta go with Mako. She's just incredibly cute, and she feels like she feels a lot of fun, you know? Like, I know, like, with the whole bang, marry, kill game, like, if there is one that, like, I want to go and marry, it would definitely be Mako. So yeah, there is that. I just wanted to go and get that out of the way. But then there is also something that I almost forgot to mention, but it is also something that I feel like actually does play a significant part in the engagement of Kill la Kill, and that is in regards to the world building. Now, I know I've already talked a lot about the creativity, especially in terms of how they would craft Honoji Academy, and also when it comes to the action and how they would go and execute it all in a pretty intense way. But the world building, I feel like that's also engaging, and it's also what provides substance to the anime, where it actually does make you think, where they really did calculate how they would go and build this world, that it is much more than just a regular school or just this regular action-packed anime. There is also something that is worth thinking about, and especially when it comes to all the questions that I have mentioned before in regards to who would go and create all these clothing that would give people these extraordinary powers. How is it that Senketsu would go and come to life? How is it that he would go and talk to Ryuko? How is it that he would go and grab his energy? What are the life threads? And so much more. There is this prominent theme of clothing that they would go and introduce, and that actually does help out to go and give an explanation and to make sense into a lot of the components that are in here, like the extravagant ideas that they would do with the costumes and Honoji Academy, or with all the fan service. It's the one thing that actually gives substance and actually gives context to everything. And that's what honestly kind of makes it engaging to see how all of this would go and flourish. And I've mentioned this a few times before, but also with how it would go and give out this subtle message about anti-fascism, how they would go and point out the way that fascists and authoritarian regimes would go and take over, and they would go and try to make a commentary on how to combat against it. It is honestly very fascinating, and it actually does make the anime a little bit more smarter than I would actually expect. And honestly, it's the kind that, at least for my brain, it gets me to be more engaged to see how things would go and develop. Where is everything leading to? Where are the answers gonna go? How are they gonna go and deliver more of the action and the fan service in a way that is actually logical and that it actually helps with the immersiveness? It's kind of funny enough, it's actually kind of like a recycling ability where like the action and the fan service is already engaging as is, but then when you add into the component of the world building, it makes those aspects even more engaging, but much more different than the first time around that you would go and watch it. So there's a lot of things in here that does make it immersive, that does make it engaging, that does make it exciting to watch. But then once you get into 2/3 into the show, that's when crap really hits the fan with this series. Now, I'm just gonna warn you right now, I will be getting into a little bit of spoiler territory. Now, I'm not going to be spoiling literally everything about the show, but I am going to be saying some things that will spoil the surprise for some of the things that would be revealed by the end of Kill la Kill. So if you guys haven't seen the show yet and you are interested to, and you don't want to know what the ending is, then you could just go and skip to here and you'll be fine. But for the rest of you, if you've already seen Kill la Kill, if you don't care about spoilers whatsoever, then let me explain myself. So once you get into 2/3 of it, which is about starting from episode 16 onward, that's when they would go and start really revealing some answers and actually revealing some intentions of the characters, to where you would go and take everything that you know about the anime, everything that you have processed and that you have seen in Kill la Kill so far, and that you got to go and throw that in the garbage. Because from there, everything just becomes absolutely ridiculous. That's at the point where they would go and answer some questions, including what are the life fibers and where do characters like Senkets come from? They would reveal the true origin story of Ryuko. They would suddenly have characters that would switch positions, where now Lady Satsuki and the Elite Four have become good guys, and everything has just been blown out of proportions to the point where now it has become this post-apocalyptic war between the human race versus clothing, where it really is at the point where Ryuko is now in a position where she literally has to save the entire world to save the human race from living clothing. Again, I'm not going to go too much into details as to why, but it does escalate to that level of ridiculousness. Now, I will say that a lot of these are actually very unexpected plot twists. Like, even when I was watching it, I did not see that coming. But these are the kind of plot twists that I don't think anybody would see coming. Like, they would leave very little to mostly no clues whatsoever that this is the outcome that they would go and give out. Now, we're talking about the kind of plot twist that would equate to somehow Palpatine returns. And it was at the point where I was finding myself so invested in the story. I was so engaged with the world building and really wanted to know what the answers are. And when they did deliver on those true answers, there was a part of me that kind of felt stupid, where I was thinking there might be some kind of logical answer, but the real answers that they would go and bring out, like, honestly, that's the kind where, going back to my first point, sometimes it gets a little too over the top and some of the ideas go a little bit too crazy, where I just need to stop and let that thing process, because it's just absolutely ridiculous, even by the series' own standards. It just gets a little bit too much at times. I'm not going to go and say that it completely turns me off. It's not the kind that would go completely ruin the entire anime, but it is the kind where the answers, let's just say, they're not what you would expect, but also they're not what you would expect that would even make sense in the context of the show. Like, often some of the ideas, like, yeah, as great or as cool as they can be, sometimes they go a little bit too far with them.
She's making this up as she goes!
But again, these are not enough to go and completely ruin the entire experience of Kill la Kill for me. Because if there is one thing that actually did manage to save the ending, like, if it's not the answers or anything like that, it has to be the action, where they really did make it this one epic finale. And you do see all the, you see all like these loose ends finally tied, and you do actually see like some closure with some character arc. And now the only thing left is just to go and defeat the big bad guy. And they certainly did deliver upon that, especially in terms of scale. Like, it really did work out on that. So overall, I would say that Kill la Kill is a solid escapist anime. This is the kind of anime that you would go and put on and you would just turn off your brain and enjoy the crazy roller coaster ride. Just enjoy all the action, enjoy all the fan service, enjoy all the crazy costumes that you would see right in front of you. Now, I will say it's not a perfect anime, and there are times in which the tone can be a little bit too over the top, or it could be a little bit too extreme, or even some of the answers can get a little bit too ridiculous after trying to build it up episode after episode, to the point where maybe you might want to take a break after like watching some of these episodes. I don't think everybody can go and just binge watch the entirety of Kill la Kill from beginning to end. But I will say, even though it does have some shortcomings, there are some aspects that actually do work out, that actually do make things up for it, and actually make Kill la Kill very enjoyable. Like, the animation is absolutely gorgeous. It's very solid and actually really does highlight the action very well. And not to mention the action itself is exhilaratingly epic. The characters themselves are often pretty charming, and I could see that this is the kind where people will have like at least one character that they would call their favorite, especially when you have like some that would have prominent themes attached to them. I will say it's also very engaging with how they would go and create the world building, despite, well, like I said, some of the answers to the questions that they would build up are just absolutely ridiculous. And overall, I would say that through my experience, I've had a great time. This is actually a pretty exciting anime, and I actually do understand how Kill la Kill managed to get its popularity. Not to mention that there are some things that it actually uses in a very clever way, like the fan service aspect, where like a lot of it is tongue-in-cheek, and sometimes the anime can get weirdly horny at times, but the main purpose of it is actually really smart, where it's not necessarily to be horny, but it's actually more for the narrative. There's actually this very smart use where the fan service is much more of a benefit to the show than an actual detriment. Now, I will say that this may not be an anime for everyone, because I can imagine that with the high amount of intensity and action, and especially with all the different fan service that you could find, it's not necessarily an anime for everyone. I don't really see everyone enjoying it, but if you're someone who actually likes or doesn't mind seeing like epic action in anime, or seeing like all these different fan services that they would offer from girls and guys and stuff like that, then honestly, like, if you don't mind that, or you do enjoy that, then you're going to really like Kill la Kill. Like, I would say that honestly, it's one of those animes, or it's one of those shows that people who don't like it, they'll definitely be turned off by it, but those who would enjoy this will really enjoy this. Now, if I would go and give Kill la Kill a rating, I did contemplate about that while I was watching the show, and it did change from time to time, but overall, I would say that I would give Kill la Kill a 7.5 out of 10, you know, like 3 out of 4 stars. I won't say that this is the best anime that I have seen, but again, for what it did right, it actually managed to do it very, very well. And again, it's one of those that you could just turn off your brain and just enjoy the show. Like, don't think too much, just enjoy the epic action that you see, and enjoy like the curvaceous bodies that they would go and present to you, even though they don't necessarily show everything, you know. It's just one of those that you that you want to watch because you want to have fun, and I can guarantee you, you will have fun watching Kill la Kill. And that should be it for this review. I don't normally do these vlog style reviews all the time, but I figured why not try something different. And also, I want to say thank you all so much for watching. And also, I want to give a very special shout out to Casey Stevens, where it's thanks to his amazing support on Patreon that allowed him to get this request for me to review Kill la Kill. So if you would like to be like Casey and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards at the same time, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, or even getting a request, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But also, if you did enjoy this review, then don't forget to go and give this a like, and subscribe to my channel if you guys haven't yet. Again, I don't normally do these types of reviews all the time, but there's also scripted reviews that I do. I also do history videos, and I talk about all forms of animation, whether it be from the East or from the West. So with all that said and done, once again, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.